Good evening, everybody. We're going to get started. My name is Consuelo Hernandez. I'm the Director of the Office of Supportive Housing. Thank you for joining us here this evening for community meeting number 3. Next slide, please. A quick overview of the agenda. First of all, thank you for all of your emails, your feedback, and your input. We've designed tonight's meeting in response to your request. We will be doing a very quick presentation, and then the balance of the time we will be doing a Q&A. We'll be answering questions live, and we'll be inviting a few other panelists to come up. And then we'll have some closing remarks and next steps. When you walked in, you should have received a comment card. By a show of hands, how many of you were here last week for community meeting number 2? Great. Very similar to last week, the comment card is intended to provide you an opportunity to share your comments, your thoughts, concerns. We have scanned all of your comments. We will be producing a community engagement report, and each of those comments will be included in that report. We have redacted your addresses for the purpose of that report. It is not published, but it is a document that we intend to give the City Council and the Board of Supervisors.
Do I need a comment card to speak?
Sure, sir. Well, just give us a second. You do not need a comment card to speak. When we do the Q&A, you'll be asked to come forward. The other thing you should have received is, again, in response to the concerns raised by the community that aren't able to attend meetings in person, we will be holding meeting number 4 via Zoom. There's copies of this document with the details. Also, how many of you have signed up or emailed us to sign up for updates or looked at our website? We recommend that you look at this county website for the project. All this information is on there. Next slide, please. Next slide. And with that, I'm going to ask Pastor Carvalho to come up and say a few words before we get started. Pastor?
Thank you for coming in. I want to thank all of you, and I just am teary-eyed just thinking about this moment in the history of our neighborhood. If you look around for a moment, friends, and you realize what America is all about. But what America is also all about is listening to understand. And then asking and having dialogue and conversation back and forth. And trying to reach a place of resolution where we all can walk away and say, truly, we've done work together. My prayer, I hope it's okay for me to say this. One night last week, somebody said this isn't a church, and at the moment it wasn't. But my life was impacted by 3 major people when I was growing up. John F. Kennedy, Martin Luther King, and Robert Kennedy. And the thing that I was so impressed with each and every one of them is they always asked for dialogue, for civil dialogue. Friends, we've been impacted by the evils, if I may, of social media. We've lost our ability to listen. And because of that, many of us have become superstitious. The great Stevie Wonder said, very superstitious. And he says these words, he says, superstition, when you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. I want to thank all the city council. I want to thank the county for coming. I want to thank that tonight we're going to have some dialogue. There'll be some answers back and forth. And my prayer and my encouragement to each of you as a neighbor, I'm a neighbor, I live in this place. Can we all give each other the opportunity to share their views? Can we all not, I was laughing over here with Aubrey about how being at union meetings, if any of you are union, you know how those can get. Can we try to make it a little more civil and be a community meeting? I appreciate the passion that everybody has, but can we listen? And some of you have assumed that I'm on the no side. I'm just gonna be honest with you. I have not made a decision as to where I sit. My decision is to serve each and every one of you, no matter what. My decision is to serve my city, the ones that God has placed in charge of the city, to serve with a whole heart and to love them. So I took a little bit longer than I did last time, but I want to thank you all for taking time, and I celebrate each and every one of you. Look around the room and celebrate the fact that you have neighbors that are this interested in coming together and being together. Amen? Have a good evening.
Thank you, Pastor. A few housekeeping, for those of you that were not here last week, the women's restroom is just down the hall and the men's restroom is on the left. For those of you that are holding up signs, please be mindful that there are people behind you and you may be blocking their view, particularly when we're trying to provide a presentation and an update and make sure that everybody can see. A few ground rules for tonight. Again, Pastor, thank you so much for your allowing us to use the facility. Thank you to Mission City Church. As the pastor mentioned, please be respectful of others and their unique opinions. We are listening. This is part of the community engagement, is to hear your voices and document them so that we can share them with our elected officials. And be patient with the community engagement process. Next slide. This evening, your hosts are Life Moves, the Sobrato Philanthropies, representatives from the city of Santa Clara and the county of Santa Clara. We do have Chief Derek Rush in the audience, and we also have Councilmember Hardy and Councilmember Jane sitting up here, as well as staff from the Life Moves organization. Thank you, Heather. And sprinkled throughout the room are staff from the Office of Supportive Housing and staff from the city's Housing, Community and Development Department up front. Next slide. This evening, again, we are proposing to provide real-time answers to your questions based on the feedback you shared last week. We want to create a space to listen to the community and allow others to share their piece. We will be documenting the public comments so that they can be shared with our elected officials. Next slide. We'll go through very quickly the background section. Next slide. For those of you that were not here and have asked about how we started and kicked off the engagement. This shows a very brief table starting from January when the City Council held a study session, and we requested that they ask us whether they wanted us to explore this property. They said, well, we don't know. Let's go out to the community first and see what they have to say. And we've held 2 community meetings. The first was via Zoom, and then this is our second in person. We have also made a commitment to host Community Forum number 4, and as I mentioned earlier, because of the feedback you all have provided and those that are not here with us today, that we would like to do that via Zoom. Next slide. One more. This is all going to be posted on the website, and I apologize, I forgot to remind you that this meeting is being recorded. We also have members of the public that are using their own equipment to record the meeting. As we mentioned last time, there's 7 general areas of concern that we've heard from the community. We're not gonna go through everything, just to highlight the areas of concern, and then we have some responses on the actual PowerPoint. When I'm done, then you get to ask your questions, come up here, and others can answer besides myself. So the first area of concern is the approval process. Is this a done deal? Do we have a vote? Has a decision been made? How can I remain informed? How can I express my concerns? Area 2 is site selection. Why here? I want to help people, but this is not the appropriate site. Did you think about the children? Did you think about the proximity to schools? Area number 3, safety and security. How will safety be addressed within the site? How will you ensure safety of the neighborhood? This site is going to attract more homeless people to our neighborhood. Area number 4, impacts on real estate values. The temporary shelter operation will negatively impact the value of my property. I have worked very hard to buy my property, and I fear that this project will lower that value. And these comments were taken from things that you all have emailed us or items that you added in the Q&A from the first meeting. So they're not editorialized. Next slide, please. Area number 5 is information on similar sites. You asked us, show me another neighborhood where you have put this type of use next to residential uses, schools, and parks. You asked us to provide you for data that shows the impacts of these projects. I visited a site and it did not seem like it was being used. Area number 6, parking impacts. What measures will be taken to ensure there is sufficient parking on site? Currently, the church next door uses the county's property for overflow. What will they do now? Area number 7, site operation and monitoring. Low barrier entry will result in a high needs population. Who is responsible for paying for services? If the project is built and there is an issue, who would I call? Will you consider housing families and children at the property? What about seniors? This is everything we've heard from you at these meetings and via email. Next slide, please. Thank you. So you've asked, is this a done deal? What is the approval process? And you asked us last time to give you a bit more detail. So on April 25th, the Santa Clara City Council will host a public hearing. The following is a brief summary of the actions the City Council would consider. First is direction on what design and operational requirements, if any, should be incorporated into the project. Determine how much funding the city can provide to support the capital and operational needs of the proposed project. Vote whether or not the city will co-sponsor a home key application with Life Moves. And authorize a delegation of authority authorizing the city manager to negotiate an MOU memorializing roles and responsibilities. This list is not exhaustive. These are just the typical things that a city council needs to consider when one of these projects is being proposed in their community. Next slide. In addition to the city council action, the Board of Supervisors also has to take an action in order for the project to move forward. As you all know, the County of Santa Clara owns the property. Me as staff, I cannot approve letting the developer, in this case Life Moves, or the city simply use the property. The board has to approve that action. They also have to determine if they want to provide funding to the project. And very honestly with you, the county funding is needed in order to make this project happen. They would also approve a delegation of authority to the county executive to enter into a letter of interest or a memorandum of understanding to memorialize roles and responsibilities. And finally, is if the board approves the action, then Life Moves would work with, assuming that the city votes yes, to submit an application for home key. And I wanted to flag for you that this would be the third and final round of home key. At least that is what the state has shared with us, that there is no current funding for round 4. So basically this would be one of the last opportunities to submit an application for home key. If the project moves forward, the city council says yes, the board says yes, and we get to the point where we're submitting an application, the state requires a consultation. They want to know, did you do community engagement? What did the community have to say? Do you have approval from your city council and or board of supervisors? Then they'll go through their application review, consider for funding, and they'll weigh that application against every others across the state and then make a decision for funding. 3 steps are required in order for this thing to actually happen. So I know that was a big question for you all in terms of, is this a done deal? Next slide. Area number 2 is site selection. Why this site? And what did you use it for before? The site is controlled by the county's Roads and Airport Department and no longer needs it for road purposes. As you all have indicated, it is used by the church for overflow parking, and that it is also a space that you all use during the seasons for pumpkin patches, I think somebody said the jumpy house, and during Christmas for the Christmas tree lot. The city of Santa Clara, again, through the Unhoused Task Force, identified a need for interim housing. We, the county, as staff, received a referral from the board saying, go look at all of our properties across the county, not just in Santa Clara, across the county, and find a parcel that's no longer needed by a different department or that you control, and see if cities are interested in partnering with the county to bring emergency interim housing like we're talking about here. And that is what we're doing. And similar to the city council, they asked, go talk to the community. As I mentioned earlier, this is possibly one of the last opportunities to leverage state funding. The other thing that we look at in terms of a parcel and our parcel analysis is its proximity to transit, its proximity to services. How close is it to a park, a school, grocery store, medical offices, and other services? So the same things that we all personally think about when we buy a property, or those are the same types of things that we look at. Next slide. You have asked, did you look at the schools? Did you look at childcare? Did you look at churches and other public spaces and facilities? Last time that we were here, we did get a copy of a map from one of you saying that our map was wrong. So we went back with the city staff and we created 3 new maps for you. They're also posted on our website. This first map shows, and you should have also received copies of the map. If you didn't, there should be additional copies in the back. If you want a printed copy, we're happy to print them and find a way to get them to you. So this map is intended to show all of the various uses that are around here. As I mentioned, transit is a big thing for us, and its proximity to services. Next slide. You also asked us, why here? There's 3 other county interim housing sites in close proximity, and here we're showing you the nearby interim supportive housing and emergency shelters that are within a 1/4 mile, 1/2 mile, and 3/4 mile from the site. Next slide. You also asked about the proximity of schools, daycares, parks, and playgrounds, and this map only shows those uses. It doesn't include all of the other items that I mentioned earlier, but these are the maps that we have based on the information using the city's GIS system. If there are questions or you think that we have not captured something accurately, please let us know. Next slide. Area number 3, safety and security. Yesterday, KQED published a report analyzing the City of San Jose's 5 interim housing sites that are similar but different than what we're talking about here. And the report looked at data from the city, and what they found is actually that since these sites have been in their neighborhood, the calls for service have decreased with the exception of medical services, which is similar to what we heard from Dr. Greenberg last week. The article is not posted on our website, but if folks are interested, we can add that to the website, but the source of the report is noted below on the slide. Next slide. You also asked about site-specific rules and community guidelines. We're not going to go through every single one of these. Heather is here to answer questions, but these are the things that are absolutely not allowed at the various sites that Life Moves manages and operates. This is taken from the Mountain View site. We are working on getting the Mountain View guidelines up on the website so that you have time to read them. I think they're about 10 or 12 pages. And during community meeting number 4, we will have an opportunity to go through these, or you can ask questions this evening. Next slide. Impacts on real estate values. There's no difference here from what we reported last time. There's no finding that suggests that these types of sites would have an impact on your property. We are working with the assessor's office to get more information, and we'll report that back next time. Next slide. You asked us about the utilization of interim housing. So every month, our office reports to the Housing, Land Use, and Transportation, Environment and Transportation Committee of the Board of Supervisors. We produce a monthly report on utilization, and then twice a year we report on temporary housing and the utilization in those programs. This is taken from our December report, and it shows data through October. Somebody mentioned last time, I visited a facility, and there were not a lot of people there. People don't want to live in these places. And so here you'll see the utilization rate by program type. We did identify that in the interim housing emergency shelters, the utilization is lower in this report, and our staff is doing a data analysis, working with the City of San Jose to understand why that number is lower than some of our other programs. The other thing that we have on here is you also asked about seniors, and I think somebody reported that our homeless population is aging. This shows you across the county the age group of the folks that access these different services by category. And we will be posting the full report on the website as well. Next slide. You asked about similar sites that are just like your neighborhood. And I mentioned that the City of San Jose has a project they're working on with Life Moves that is under construction. It's Branham Lane and Monterey Highway. The proposal includes 204 units, about 200 square foot a unit, and it's for single adults and couples. And here what we've shown you is it's primarily a single-family residential neighborhood. It's next to several parks, and a public library is actually right across the street. It's 0.2 miles from VTA bus line 68, as well as a few others. It's 0.7 miles from Safeway. And then here on the slide, you'll see the distance from the site to the schools in that area. Oak Grove High School is also about 1.8 miles away, and Del Roble Elementary is also 1.8 miles away. So you'll see very similar to your neighborhood. Next slide. Area number 6, parking. It was shown last time that there are 80 parking spaces in the current design. This does include staff parking, and I believe Life Moves is going to be working on breaking down the difference between staff and client parking. We also do, at the county, need to discuss the expired lease agreement with the church next door related to overflow parking. We don't have an answer for you on this front, but I wanted to share with you that we do have a lease, it's expired, and the church does use it for overflow parking. Next slide. Area 8, site operation. How will referrals to the property work? So on here is a really complicated map that's a little old. This is just intended to show you the overall system map. But interim housing is also referred to as a service-enriched shelter in our continuum of care quality standards. And the reason why we make that distinction is because for service-enriched shelter or interim housing, it requires that the service provider provide a robust service package directly to the person or through a referral. And folks that are participating in the program have to spend every night in the facility to remain eligible for the program. So last time that we were here, you all talked about, are people going to be lining up, waiting to enter the facility? That's a really older model. In our community, we use a centralization process, and in this case, we would be working with your local police department, your housing staff to identify areas in your community where people are unsheltered, do targeted outreach, and have them move into the facility, again, if it moves forward. Next slide. Area 8, site operation. Last time you asked us, why can't you house families here? We heard from a few school district folks that they are concerned that there's a growing number of children who are becoming homeless and still going to school. So we had a conversation with the Life Moves team, and they are analyzing options that would include family units in the proposal. As an example, in the city of Palo Alto, their interim housing site includes 64 units for individuals and couples and 44 units for families. So part of that analysis includes, well, we've designed this project to be singles and couples, just like anything else. What modifications to the building need to happen? Do we need to reduce the footprint? There are other requirements like childcare, playgrounds. So Life Moves is working on that. On the county side, we're also analyzing data from our centralized temporary shelter hotline, our housing hotline. There's about 860 people that are waiting for shelter right now, and of those, about 25% of them are families. But there's a lot more data analysis that we have to do. We want to understand how many of them are from North County, how many of them are specifically connected or from Santa Clara, how many are sleeping in their cars, trying to understand a little bit more about the needs of the people that are unhoused in Santa Clara. That's all we have for you in terms of presentation. We are going to move into the balance of the time is all input, Q&A. You can start to form a line. There's 2 mics. We will be giving you 1 minute to speak. If there is a question, we will pause and find the appropriate person to answer the question. Representatives from the city, including public safety, will come up when a question related to them is asked. And last time you also told us some people are getting more time than others. Well, we have a timer so you can see exactly how much everybody is speaking. Again, we ask that you be respectful and mindful. All of your comments are being captured. If you want to say more or speak more, email us. All of that is a public record, or use the comment card. And we're going to start with Colleen. Oh. Sure, council member. Apologies, everybody. The council member asked the question, and I can go back to the slide, but in older traditional models of overnight shelter, people would come, they would show up, form a line, access the shelter, sleep there, and then, typically very early hour, like 6 in the morning, be asked to leave. That is not what happens in our current programs here in the county. There's a centralized hotline, people are referred, and when it is service enriched, they have to have a mechanism to lock the door that they're staying in. And there's a lot of, and perhaps council member, those are some of the things that we can bring at the next meeting, and we can have Life Moves walk through. What does it look like? If I'm staying in one of these interim housing sites, what does my daily life look like? And we can bring that to the next meeting. Thank you. Sir?
Hello, my name is Jeff Houston. I am a longtime member of this community and live within walking distance from the project. In fact, I walked here tonight. I am speaking in favor, and I hope that it is approved. I like this location because it is important for the project residents to be a part of our community while they find long-term housing. I like that we will provide an early preference for people that have a connection with Santa Clara. I like that studies have shown that low-income housing has no impact on nearby home value. I like that there will be rules for residents, like curfews, that participants and visitors check in upon arrival, and that monitors.
We also want to invite, before the next speaker, we do want to invite folks that are standing and not waiting to speak. There is room upstairs if you want to go to the balcony, and I will remind folks it does get a little warmer up there. And also, Vice Mayor Park has arrived. Thank you. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Cassidy Kierans, and I'm a student at Santa Clara University studying finance, and I moved here 4 years ago. Originally from St. Louis, I had not had much exposure to homelessness, but once I moved here, I immediately noticed the extreme homelessness that Santa Clara is struggling with. As someone who is housed and someone who has a voice and the ability to help the people who do not have either of these things, I felt an increasing sense of duty to help these people who are just like us, and in many cases, end up in the position they are in due to circumstance, not because they are bad people. I constantly hear people talking about how big of an issue homelessness is in Santa Clara and saying, oh, we need a solution, we need to fix this, but just don't do it near me, do it somewhere else. We have an opportunity to help our neighbors get back on their feet and have the quality of life we would expect any human being to be deserving of. Let's support our neighbors and support this housing project. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Again, just so that everybody is respectful, I appreciate the sentiment, but let's be respectful of everybody here, and please, no clapping. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ashish Patel, and I have been living in this community for 23 years. It is unfortunate that county has proposed to build a low barrier shelter at Lawrence and Benton without providing any details or commitments on funding law enforcement or traffic safety. I'm not seeing a single dollar sign on the presentation that's being done so far. I vehemently oppose this shelter. Instead, use this land to build low-income senior support housing. We are not statistics here. One negative incident will leave lifelong mark on our lives.
Again, everybody. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Ken. I'm a 28-year resident of Santa Clara, and I want to voice my my opposition to locating the homeless shelter at the corner of Lawrence and Benton. This is not an appropriate location for the shelter for the reasons previously outlined. Safety concerns, probable increases in crime, negative impact on local businesses, trash left behind by the unhoused, and the negative impact on property values in the immediate area. If you truly haven't made a decision yet, you must take into account the input you are receiving from residents. I would have to say that about 95% of the comments reflect a desire to have you build the shelter somewhere else in Santa Clara County. There have to be other locations that are more appropriate. I'm not sure what's driving this effort to put the homeless shelter at the busy intersection of Lawrence and Benton. Is there a state mandate we don't know about? Is the county trying to meet certain temporary housing numbers tied to funding? Let's be honest here. The presence of the homeless shelter will not solve the problem of the in-house in this area.
Again, everybody, I appreciate the sentiment, but if we're not allowing one group to clap, we should not allow the other. So if you're clapping, then by all means clap. Next. We will stop the meeting, everybody, when there is a disruption. We have the council here who wants to hear your comments. Go ahead.
Hello everyone, my name is Joyce. I strongly oppose this Benton Lawrence shelter. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Urban Development, homelessness in the U.S. has been trending down recently, but increased about 40% in California, which helps homeless people the most across the nation. Why does the state of California help homelessness most, but still have the most number of the homeless in the U.S.? Are there any systematic corruption inside this Home Key project? This Home Key project is not solving any homeless issue, but just creating more and more homeless here. Using Milpitas' example, police-involved incidents has been increased significantly after the shelter is being built. And look at San Francisco with numerous shelters. The city is full of drug dealing, robbery, theft, just like hell. We do not want to repeat that here. New shelters should be built based on the occupancy of the existing shelters, not built without a limit. And they should not be built far away from, they should be far away from the residential area, but close to the government buildings and the police stations.
Sure.
Hi, I'm Ashish, and I'm strongly in opposition to building a low entry barrier shelter over here. And it's not about not in my neighborhood. It's actually not in any neighborhood. The low entry barrier should not be placed close to residences of any of our families. There should be a better location so that the folks who need help can get consolidated help without adverse impact to the neighborhood. We also saw statistics actually from Milpitas, which was through a city council meeting itself in August 2022, which showed a lot of increase in crime in Milpitas in the affected area. Again, data is data. It can be looked at any other way. But I'll say from a safety security perspective, we as your citizens are saying enough is enough. Stop playing with our security, our safety. We have taken enough. We cannot take a blow to our security. If that happens, we are watching, and our votes will not be with you.
Hi, my name is Yang. I wanted to make one comment, and you can see that you have already set a rule for the roof, but as like you're potentially going to set a rule for the shelter. Is that working? We are good citizens. Everybody's good citizens here, but this is not even working for good citizens. Why can't we just assume that those rules that you're setting for the place is going to magically work, right? And law is not a law without a law enforcement. And I understand you guys are hoping for the best. I think that's, you did your part of the job, but you have to prepare for the worst.
My name is Cindy, and I'm in strong oppose of this location to build this shelter. First, I would like to say clapping is part of the sentiment and feedback and should definitely be included in this hearing. And also to your comment, Ms. Hernandez, you said like the San Jose shelter, I believe you refers to the Abraham shelter. And this is just a horrible mistake. And reckless decision made by the city of San Jose and should never be repeated by the city of Santa Clara or any other cities in the Santa Clara County. Also, if you compare the two locations, they are extremely different. On our handout, page 3, you will see there are only 3 schools within 1 to 1.5 miles from the San Jose location. For ours, it's 15, and the total student number is 10 times difference. And also, I have a question for Ms. Hernandez. On the handout, it says you're going to prepare a report of the community engagement and send the report to the city and the county. My question, can I finish the question? Can I finish the question?
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. So my question is, how are you going to prepare that report? And also, how are you going to present the feedback from the community? In which format? And also, what is the timeline for you to submit that report? And also, like, after is that between now to the, yeah?
I think.
Yeah, okay.
I will defer to the city staff in terms of the timing for the April 25th report, but the way that we have organized the community engagement, you submitted through the first community meeting, through the Q&A function. There were about 351 questions and comments. Half of those are posted on the website. It's a report, it gets attached. Some of you also submitted the comment card. Those have been scanned. They will be included in the record. We provide a summary of the number of people that attended the meeting. We have people counting outside. The intent of the report is to show what we did in terms of community engagement, attendance, and what have you. Go ahead. Yeah.
Hello again. My name is Andrew Crabtree, and I'm with the City of Santa Clara staff. And so for the April 25th City Council meeting, that's a Tuesday, we put out a packet for those council meetings the week before, probably on Friday, possibly on Thursday, the week before. And at that point, we would have all of the staff analysis of the issue. We would, part of our goal is, as I think Consuelo also says, to faithfully transmit all of the input we've heard from the community, to make sure we capture all the comments we've heard, the concerns of the community, so that those are made available to the City Council so that they're aware of them.
Thank you, Andrew.
Hello, my name is Alon. I live within 1,000 feet of the proposed interim housing location, and I would like to speak a little bit about safety. So people have assumed that opening an interim housing facility will reduce the safety in the neighborhood, but studies have shown that actually the result is the opposite. Because homeless people are already in our community. They are in our park, they're in the creek, they're living in the interim housing, and when they do not have a way to have a private home and lock their door, there is much more incidence of attacks, of violence between people who are in the house. By giving them this opportunity to have safe housing, we are actually increasing the safety of the community, both for the unhoused and for the housed residents of our neighborhood. And for that reason, I'm in very strong support for the proposal, especially for the low barrier, because many unhoused people will just not go to somewhere which requires them to prove that they are a good fit person.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Are you in line right now? Yeah. Okay, I think some person going.
Go ahead, sir.
My name is Vishal. I strongly oppose this project. I want to tell my fellow friends here that if you think that this is an opportunity to help neighbor, go look at the data from Milpitas. 95% of the people will not be living in the Santa Clara, which will be housed in this facility. Also, some of the people who think that the people are already here, yes, they are here, but they are scattered. Once you bring all of them at one place, also the people who are outside the Santa Clara city, this will become an epicenter of 911 calls, and we have all seen the data from Milpitas. We have seen Ms. Hernandez on the call, on the record, saying that it is very common to have a steep spike in the 911 calls and crime rates once these facilities are populated. So why don't you put that data here in the slides, right, and show that what is the crime rate? Property values, you need to fix your mistake. You cannot use county assessors data to determine the proper impact on the property values. That mistake needs to be fixed. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Elizabeth Conlon. I'm here as a representative of South Bay YIMBY, a group of housing advocates representing both people within the city of Santa Clara and Santa Clara County. and I just wanted to voice our strong support for this project. I would ask everyone to consider that the option isn't just between this project and no homelessness, it's between this project and the status quo, which means many people sleeping outdoors, sleeping in their cars, and struggling to have a roof over their head. This is exactly the sort of project that we should look for if we are worried about mental illness or drug use, because there are services involved in this project, and I would really ask everyone to reconsider this against the status quo. Will your property values be hurt more from unhoused people in the community or from having a place that actually connects people with services? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Eva. I want to reply to the people who support. Firstly, I am opposing to this. Do you really think that building a shelter in our community will help these people? Think of the problems. Like for the people who come out from the shelter, if they have nowhere to go, where will they stay? They will stay in front of your door and our door. And for the people who are on the wait list for the shelter, who didn't go to in the shelter, where do they go? They'll go to still live in front of our doors, and that would be problems, right? And I don't see any solutions proposed right now to solve these kind of problems. And there are just two roads in front of us. One is keep the safe community as it is, and another one is just let Santa Clara become one of the downtown LA, which attracts thousands of homeless people, and not homeless crime or people.
My name is Brenda. I've lived in Santa Clara and Sunnyvale since I was 5. I adamantly oppose the shelter at this location. This is not just a homeless issue. This is a mental health crisis. This land is county land, meaning it was purchased with taxpayer dollars. Therefore, it should be the Santa Clara taxpayers to decide whether or not this location serves our community. The fact that this is a low barrier shelter should be a major concern to everyone. Do you know that the shelter is for men and couples only? Why do you think this is? Maybe because convicts will be dropped off here and the laws will not be enforced, or the laws will actually be broken. Did you know that low barrier shelter means no identification will be required, no background checks will be done, sobriety is not a requirement, no curfews? Some shelters have guidelines. The low barrier shelter is a way to break the laws that are in place that protect our families and our children.
Welcome. Hi, I'm Aria and I'm 9 years old, and I'm worried about the homeless shelter because there's a lot of people in our schools, including me, that walk home from school, and at night there are a lot of cars, and I'm worried they could run over a homeless person.
I'm Aria's mom and concerned parent of all the school children in the neighborhood. And we want to know, what is the city's plan to keep the children safe from harassment, from getting molested on the streets? Currently, we have homeless people in our backyard constantly. And if you can't confine 250 people into a homeless shelter, they're not going to, they need place to walk around. You can't say, oh, they're not going to leave the land and just stay there and not, bother people that are around them. So what are the plans to keep the community safe from harassment?
So is the county here, or is it just the city? Okay, so the county, in my mind, is the one that gets to do the determination, not the city, right? The city can't say, we don't want it legally.
If you're asking the approval process, the first step is with the city council.
Okay, they get to advise, but if the county says do what they want, they can do what they want, correct?
No, this is a partnership.
Okay.
If the city says no, we have to go back to the board and report that the city is not interested in partnering for this project.
Okay, that's one of my concerns. The path to homelessness is many. Not all people that are homeless are the same. They have different needs. You talk about robust services and such like that. I get it. The problem is that you're doing one thing. I don't see the details on how you're going to deal with that population given what their needs are, because there are many. And when you look at other places that fail or succeed, those are the things that we should be looking at and saying, why did this fail? Why did this succeed? I think we need to have it because we need to have some way of taking care of the problem that is all over our city.
Hi, my name is James Wang. I live 1 block away, just across the Lawrence Street. I'm here to voice my strong opposition to this housing project. While I do support building housing project for homeless people, because all men are created equal, but just because all men are created equal, as city and the council officers, you need to think about whether you also want to live in an area where just one step away from a high-speed expressway, where there's a lot of safety issues. And at least I don't want to, risk my life for all those safety issues. And I don't want my, fellow citizens, although they're homeless, to suffer from this either. That's one. Second thing is about the low barrier entry. So there are people who wants to stay in a homeless shelter forever, but there are people who really want to leverage this opportunity to coming back to the normal life. And imagine you're invited to onboard a plane, and I'm telling you this is a low barrier security check, whether you're willing to onboard. And if you're hesitating or no, really think about whether your vote for this project. Thank you.
Hi, I live in this neighborhood for 10 years, and I am strongly against this proposal. And I see some supporters saying, oh, by building this homeless shelter, it's an opportunity for families, children to have a chance to grow and learn by seeing and interacting with homeless people. Then I would request you to provide a specific information that by other side of homeless shelter, what kind of the chance that the kids, the families grow better and learn better with the homeless shelter? Just show us some information, details, testimonies that the family and the kids learn better. Especially for the supporters, if you have kids, I would see you and together with your 6-7 years old girl together to visit the homeless shelter, homeless people, and interacting with them, and to show us that your kids grow better. So to convince me that it is a good way to build a good community. You show first.
Welcome. Thank you. Hi, my name is Jacob Hinton. I've been a member of this community for 4.5 years. I drive to work every day on Lawrence Expressway, and one of the things I see there is on the on-ramp are people sleeping in cots and tents, and that's been a very big concern to me because it's only a matter of time before, well, someone gets hit. I think it's a really great development here that we're looking at building a homeless shelter in this community. I am firmly in support of it. I don't think it goes far enough, of course, in addressing the homeless issue, but I think it will help, especially seeing after COVID, we've had, I believe, a 35% jump in the homelessness in this community. I think if we don't build these shelters now, it's only going to get worse, and we're only going to further criminalize homelessness unless we build something to help them get better. I see a lot of concerns, too, about drug abuse as well as mental illness. Well, that doesn't really get better unless they have a place to live that's not outdoors and homeless. That should be pretty self-evident to me. Also, there's this map here I saw with all these schools around this homeless shelter. I think it'd be great if there was some family units in these shelters so that way those families could have their kids go to school around here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Mike. I'm strongly also in support of this project. As pointed out, these are not homeless people being flown in from another state or something. These are people living now in this community with no other place to go. Do you really feel safer with people living, as just described, on the street without shelter, without supportive services? And if you, or coming in your backyard, what makes that a good idea? Does that really make everybody safer? And how can you break up a homeless encampment if there's no place for the people to go? Just to state the obvious, if you give a homeless person a home, they're not homeless anymore. And I hate to see the hostility towards these unfortunate people. So I support this project. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Yo-Yo. I am a resident of Santa Clara City. I live a mile away. My family live here. My kids go to school here. I strongly oppose this location. This is a low-barrier project. We feel unsafe. We feel desperate that we cannot keep our family and our kids safe. You guys said that we should show our love. How can one show love with a heart full of fear?
Hi, my name is Ray. I spend hours to search for safety numbers around shelters, so I know all these numbers that you have shown. You just showed a report saying that number of calls to police reduced in San Jose after having a shelter. Do you know why number of calls to police reduced? Search for another report. San Jose police are getting slower at responding to calls. I'll read a paragraph. You see a direct decline year over year in these reports because staffing has just kept going down. Then add on a much higher number of homeless folks that these calls take much more time to solve and a larger population in general. So number of calls go down because homeless folks make these calls much longer. So whenever we ask safety questions, the answer is always no safety issue. Did you really do your research?
Hi, I'm Cecil. I'm retired, and I own and live in my condo, which is directly across the street from the proposed project. Although liberal, I'm also realistic. I hope those on the stage and those who will vote are also realists. Homeless need significant help, but housing those with serious substance abuse and or those severely mentally ill who will be allowed to come and go freely in a neighborhood filled with families, seniors, schools is unrealistic and unwise. Although a minority might be helped in 5 to 6 months, the majority will still require help for their illness for 2 to 6 years, and I've read that online. And they still may be looking for jobs or housing. If the lot must be used, consider housing for low-income seniors, those with jobs who can't afford current rents. Please be realistic. Thousands of people reside across from this location, not just a strip mall, a 7-Eleven strip mall.
Hi, I'm Neelu, and I strongly oppose this idea of building this low-barrier shelter. I have 2 questions and 1 concern. The first question being, is this really to support homeless people? By putting in people with mental illness and drug addiction on an expressway, to me, it seems like a plan to get rid of them, 1 person at a time. My second question is, why are no single females or families with children allowed in this shelter? Because it's not safe for them? Then how is it safe for people around this shelter? And one last.
Sorry, that was it. 2 questions. Your time was up. To answer your question on number 2, during the presentation, I mentioned that Life Moves is looking at adding families with children to the facility. Item number 1, your question, I'm not sure that I fully understood. Heather, I'm not sure if you caught her question or someone from the Life Moves team about, was it about services? Oh, the location. Okay, thank you.
Okay, my name is Judy Krates, and I'm not going to get any applause because I have questions on both sides. So my first, and I do live in the neighborhood, my first surprise was the number of adults originally proposed. I just heard you considering families, but given the extensive needs of who is being there, the number of adults is really, I would call that high density needs. And are you really providing the high density services? Are you going to be able to provide that? Someone else mentioned we're not solving homelessness, and we all agree that. But just a thought, and it's been mentioned before, if you really want to solve the homeless problem, let's look to the future and look to families, because there is plenty of data, if you look for it, that homeless children do not go to school, do not graduate, drop out, and we're creating another generation of homelessness. So that is not going to go away unless we deal with families who, and I know parents disagree, children can be calming, okay? Children can calm. And the last thing, no one's going to clap for me, so I get 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay. Talk about property values.
Yeah. Hi, this is Sergi. I also live in the neighborhood. So I have a question for the operation cost. So who are going to pay the operation cost, and will this also be covered in the home key project? And I have another question is based on the recent data shared from Milpitas Police Department. So the service call number before and after the shelter built in Milpitas, so it's 4 times higher. And so I have a question to the 2 police officers here. Do you have some staffing plan to manage this shelter? And my last question to you is, so as if you have the staffing plan, so you have the new police officers, are they have a proper place to live in Santa Clara? So I think we should build the apartment for the police, for the nurse, for the first responder, instead of building.
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Derek Rush, the Assistant Police Chief here in the city of Santa Clara. I see there's a lot of questions. I can note down and give my comments at the end if you would like.
I think they're asked.
I think that would be beneficial. So I'll have about 5 or 10 minutes of comments at the very end, and I'll continue to write down questions that are directed to us to give you guys a chance to all speak here.
Thank you. And to answer the first question around services, Home Key does allow, so the funding is for the capital to build it, and then up to 3 years of funding to operate it. Okay, I answered the one question, everybody. Thank you. Next.
Hi, good evening. My name is Elizabeth Spees, and I am here in support of this project. I have personally worked with people who are disadvantaged and looking for housing for several years in the past, and I understand how difficult that can be, even more so when you are without a home. And I believe that housing is a human right. And as much as people can say that they don't want this project in their backyard, or they are worried about the effect on their neighborhood, I believe everyone could basically say that in the entire United States. Everyone could say, it's too close to me, it's too close to this, it's too close to that, and we would basically just be getting nowhere. So I personally believe that it's a good thing for the community. These people are already living here. There's already a lot of danger to them living outside and being exposed to things. And this is a way for them to get services and to get connected to ways to improve their lives. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Yang, and I live in this neighborhood for around 3 years. So I'm strongly against for this project, not only for this specific place, but for any shelter proposal that in the low density neighborhood. And also I actually have doubts for the data integrity of the information you just provided, like the neighborhood safety, because it's very different from what we collected. For example, the total police call increased several times since the home key Milpitas has started, like someone just mentioned. And also notice that you didn't change your statement about the impact of the home value since from the previous meeting. Also, it's it's strongly against our result. So I'm wondering, do you consider getting data from other trust source? And how do you plan to prove the correctness of the data you present? Thanks.
Hi, my name is Elisa, and I support this proposal. Mental illness is not something to be afraid of. At least 20% of adults have mental illness, and most of us handle it just fine. And if someone in this facility needs help, they would be able to receive help because of this facility. People that you view as unstable would have assistance before, during, and after what would otherwise be a public event. Plus, housing is proven to improve mental health. When you complain about mental disorders, you're referring to people that are already in your neighborhood. I'd also like to address the concern of my neighbor who didn't like what I put on our supporters website. I am an example of a child who met and interacted and volunteered with homeless people when I was under the age of 10, and I believe that I'm better for it. I think I'm more compassionate and have more empathy because I've engaged with people who are different from myself. You all yelled at me last week, but I want you to know that you will not scare me away. I will always stand up for what I know is right.
Hi, my name is Asha DiMontier. I live at the corner of Pomeroy and Benton, and I'm a strong supporter of this project. I believe that according to the social science literature on homelessness, the most effective way of reducing the number of people who are living unsheltered on the streets is to provide supportive housing. So this is an evidence-backed solution that we're looking at. But I also know that the need is very great in our city and in the county. So my question to you all, to both the city as well as the county, is how does this project fit into a larger strategy, not only to help the people who are currently unsheltered, but also to prevent more people from losing their homes and becoming unsheltered? Thank you.
I want to turn to, I don't know if the council wants to respond or we can take the question after. We'll take the question after. Go ahead.
I am in support of this project. Let me be clear to the decision makers. This is not proposed to be a dorm-style shelter with people lining up all day to get in. This project will provide the unhoused with resources for them to get back on their feet. They will have on-site professional assistance that will help them get jobs, healthcare, insurance, work training, and allow them to save money to move into permanent housing. People are unhoused for many reasons. If they apply to be part of this project, they are taking ownership of their situation. I understand that the demographics of those selected may change. I also understand that the law will not allow pedophiles in this facility due to proximity to schools and children. And while this will be a low-barrier facility, there will still be requirements for entry and rules to be followed. This location and project will help our most needy neighbors. It will provide a concrete and local way for those who say they are concerned about the homeless problem to volunteer to help those in need.
Thank you. Thanks, Diana.
Hi, I'm a homeowner just on the other side of Lawrence Expressway. I'd like to talk a little bit about the data that you provided for us on the first meeting. In our analysis, it's basically nearly the same number of people that left surrounding cities arrived in Santa Clara and a couple of other cities. I'm happy to give you the data afterward. This interim facility is supposed to house people for 6 months. We have under 400 in Santa Clara, according to your data. Does that mean that after those 400 go through that shelter, we're going to bring in individuals from other parts of the county? It makes Santa Clara a magnet and a transit center for the region. For every 1% increase in crime, there's a 1.5% decrease in home value.
I'm John Chin. I'm a resident since 2005, and I'm invested in my community. I think the homeless situation needs to be addressed. My concern is interim housing. The people that come in don't have an investment in the community like I do. My other concern is the fact that you say there's no drinking or drug use there, but you're going to house drinking and drug users. So the infrastructure that comes with that is going to come to our neighborhood to supply those people. Not everybody is going to recover immediately. So the drug dealers and other people, the support groups for those people are going to come to our neighborhood because there's a congregation of people there. So that's my concern. My other concern is the fact that I know when I look at Mountain View and I go over there, I see the people that go from the shelter and they go and they drink in the Costco parking lot and they're sitting around drinking. So my question is, what are you going to do about the people? They're going to go drink somewhere in our park?
Hi, my name is June Nichols, and I've lived in this community in Santa Clara for 32 years. And I am a retired teacher. I have had students who have been homeless, and I know the need is great, and I am for this project. I mean, there are people on the streets today who need a place to sleep, who need a place to call home, even if it's only for 6 months. And I think it's rather ironic that so many people are against this project, and we're in a church, then it is like the whole Christian idea is to care for others, and that's what I would like to see us. Yeah, if people feel guilty, that's not my problem. So anyway, I am for this project 100%. Thank you.
Hi, my name's Barbara. I've been in the area about 25 years, and I'm undecided. Okay, so there's two key things going on here. Safety. Everyone wants their children, their families safe, and the homeless. We want them safe. The other thing is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of the people that are homeless. What will they do? The mental illness, addictions. So I think maybe if we had like a portable, and there's a doctor in Toronto, they also have homeless problems. They have portables they're putting near the hospital so people can get medical help they need. They're homeless. Or separate this out more. Put 20 people near a church. People will help them. Then the community can get to know 10 or 20 people, which is much easier than being thrown with 80 to 100, 200 people. And I think that's a big fear factor. So that's just my input.
Hi, my name is Yale, and I personally do realize that the homelessness is a real issue that needs to be addressed. However, I don't think continue to build the shelter is the real solutions. So I have learned a lot from the shelter in Milpitas, San Francisco, New York, and it's a temporarily provide a place for the homeless to live, and however, it creates a lot of potential unexpected issues. So especially for this low barriers project, if we cannot solve the current problem by building a shelter, what we are going to do for this project? Are we going to tear down, let the homeless go, or we are going to continue to build more shelters? Because I think we're going to attract more homeless or people coming from all over the place, not only from California. So we need to be very conservative before making quick decisions. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Wen Xiang. I have been living in Sunnyvale and San Jose for 10 years. I'm not a Santa Clara resident, but I support you to speak out for yourself because I'm also concerned about this project. Though I don't live in Santa Clara, but I come to this area every week regularly to shop, to meet with
friends and go to restaurant. So I think the first reaction from my children knowing this project is their question is, will we go there anymore? I think you should consider the impacts not only to Santa Clara City, but also the surrounding areas. People who want to come here to shop, to enjoy this lovely environment. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Chuck, and I wanted to voice my support for this project. Too many of our neighbors are having to live in their cars or live on the streets because they lost their jobs, because the landlords increased the rent. And this will provide them a helping hand to get back on their feet. And it can seem scary initially when projects like this are proposed, but these neighbors are already here. They're living in the off-ramps. They're living in the parks. They're living throughout our communities. And would we rather have them living there? Would we rather provide them a safe place with the services they need to get on their feet again? Thank you.
Thank you. We're going to take 30 more folks so that we can give the police department an opportunity to respond to your questions. We do need to return the facility back to the pastor at 8. It is 7:14. We will take 30 more speakers.
Hi, my name is Wei Yi. I'm a mom of 3 young girls. I strongly oppose to Benton shelter, but more importantly, I'm here to pass along a message from an actual homeless parent who is already in this community. This homeless father said no to Benton shelter. This homeless father lives in the community with his kids and family, but this shelter is for adults only. This father said even if it accepts families, he won't feel safe putting his kids there because of the criminals and drug-addicted people. This father handed his signed petition to me without a second hesitation because he's deeply concerned about the safety of his kids and family. I feel the weight of his signature. I feel honored that he's willing to share his experience with me, and I feel obliged to pass it along. Fellow neighbors, we all care and want to help the people who are suffering. But if the very people we are trying to help said no, if the very people who had first-hand experience with the sheltering system said no.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Emily Ann Ramos with Silicon Valley at Home. We are encouraging housing solutions to solve our housing crisis region-wide. We are in support of this project. As we look at trying to solve this housing crisis throughout the entire region, we need to be bold with our solutions on all levels. So we look through the framework of the 3 Ps, production, preservation, and protection. But when you look at production, you need to look at production of housing at all income levels. We hope that, I think back to one of the previous commenters, and they asked, how can we look with love when we have so much fear? And the answer is compassion and courage. And I believe that everyone here are good people, are good neighbors, and want to do the best for everyone. And I think as we try to solve our housing crisis, we need to look with compassion and courage and try to find a way.
Hello, my name is Tian Shan, and I'm strongly opposed for this shelter project. My reason is mainly around the safety issue. And I can share some of my personal stories about my experience in the city, because everyone knows San Francisco city is suffering from the homeless problem for quite a long time. And even though previously we have the law to prohibit the drug usage, but you can see there's a lot of issues with the homeless people suffering from the drug abusive, mental illness, and also the alcohol problems. And I can see these problems happen here if we don't have a screening and have a lower bar for those people. And I got a friend got a random punch, and I got a by some people in the broad daylight and got my female friends got a sexual harassment. I don't want any of these happen for all the fellow friends here.
Hi, my name is Kim, and I've lived in Santa Clara for 17 years. I'm against building a low barrier to entry facility in Benton and Lawrence. In our last meeting, you said there were only 4 schools within 1.5-mile radius of the proposed location. That is wrong. There are 12 schools: St. Lawrence, Briarwood, Pomeroy, Santa Clara, Stratford, Monticello, Sutter, Laurelwood, St. Justin, Peterson, Community Day, and New Valley. In addition, there are over a dozen daycares and preschools, which tally up to a total of over 25 facilities within 1.5 miles of the site. As a parent of 2 children who bike and walk to schools, I'm deeply concerned with having 200+ rotating occupants on a short-term basis coming in and out of this area. We heard last meeting that these units are very, very, very small, so where will they go? They'll begin to congregate at Curtis Field, Carmichael Park, Central Park, where children play Little League, soccer, tennis, gymnastics, ride their bikes, and play on the playgrounds. I hope you guys are listening.
Hi, my name is Allie Saperman, and I'm speaking on behalf of the Housing Action Coalition in South Bay YIMBY in strong support of this project. I'm also speaking as someone who's been housing insecure throughout my life. Many people have said tonight that the unhoused community makes them feel unsafe, but I certainly don't think that people like me are a danger to my community. And if you house people who are homeless, they simply just become your neighbor. I go to hundreds of community meetings all across the county and the Bay Area, and I've never seen such severe fear-mongering at a meeting. Frankly, I'd feel much safer living in a community with folks who happen to be unhoused than in a community with some of the neighbors in this room. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Shalini. I'm a homeowner. I've lived in this area for over 30 years, and my house is about half a mile away from the proposed project. I'm a mother, a grandmother, an engineer, an immigrant, and I have, obviously, the issues like safety are very important to me, and I am not afraid of this project. I feel that a lot of the confusion comes because people think are lumping all kinds of different emergency shelter and housing options together. I think we heard at the last meeting, there's a big difference in the effects on the surrounding neighborhood of a really well-designed and well-run program as opposed to one that's thrown together and underfunded and doesn't go ahead. So I think a lot of the misconceptions, for example, about what low barrier really means, low barrier is not the same as no barrier. And I think if Life Moves could maybe provide a bit more discussion and openness about that would be helpful. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Said. I'm a brand new resident for Santa Clara. So I think we all saw the number that the homeless jumped by 35%, and we're into this discussion that is heated and everybody disagree and agree. Interesting, I was looking at the data. So if you look at the homeless population, almost all of the city north and west of Santa Clara has a reduction between 2019 and 2022. And all of the city south and east of Santa Clara had an increase. Is this a coincidence or just the population of the homeless moving around? I think that brings the main question here is that how do we know for sure that interim housing is actually an effective solution? And that takes me to the Mountain View example. We built interim housing there. The reduction in 3 years of the total unsheltered homeless was about 370 people. But the shelter population only increased by 100. I would very much like to know what else did they do to actually cause the unsheltered homeless to be reduced for the more than 2/3. That is a more effective answer. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Peggy Shen. I've lived in the area for more than 20 years next to Peterson Middle School, and I mostly had some process questions because I feel like there's not very much transparency, there's not very much solid data, and I just had some questions. So one of the questions I have is this low barrier criterion. Does this mean that there's no background checks? Are you going to actually check the sex crime records of the
the applicant to see if they cannot be housed in this location. Another question I have is when people come here and either they're kicked out because they're not following the rules or their time has run out because they have met the interim time period. Are they going to be shipped out of the area or are they just going to be released here? What is the support for those people? Another question that someone raised was the financial planning. So we heard that the financial planning is for 3 years. We would like to see what this plan is. We haven't seen any data really on what this plan is. And my last question is for the board. Is the Santa Clara County Board, are they going to vote on it or have they already decided?
They have not decided.
Welcome.
Hi, my name is Jitesh Jain. I live within a quarter mile of this project. I am strongly opposed to this project. I have a couple of questions. If drugs and weapons are not allowed on the shelter, will you do periodic checks for them? And what happens if somebody is caught with them? Also, what happens if somebody from the shelter is caught littering and doing misdemeanor on the nearby streets or parks? And one last question is, you just now said that nothing has been decided on the project, but from all your answers and comments, it feels like you are completely in support and you do not care about what we say. Why is that?
Hi, my name is Nitin Bahadur. I'm a resident of Santa Clara, about 2 blocks away from where the proposed shelter is. I think the county has made its decision. My comments are to the city folks. I think the city folks should actually look at data and collect data on their own. Essentially, it's not about a NIMBY thing over here. It's simply about collect the data about other shelters that have been created, what are the density of population in those areas, what is the number of kids, and what are the number of interim people housed, and the crime rate in that area, how it was impacted. I would like the city officials to make their own judgment call and not rely on data from the county, because multiple people here have disproved the data. And earlier on, last time, there was a comment about, why don't you find a different shelter, place, location for us? I do not want any such arguments said, because anyone who asks me to do that job should be fired. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Julia. I'm not living in this area. I'm here just to gather data. So I heard about the data about Milpitas and San Jose shelters. From what I heard, I figured out you guys didn't do the diligence, or you guys selectively choose data in your favor. I'm a real estate investor. If I'm proposed a project like that, I'll definitely say no. A question, how about the funding after 3 to 4 years? Another question, how many staff will be placed in that shelter? Another question, you said there's other shelters, there are low occupancy rates. Why don't you guys just put homeless people in those shelters? 5, it's putting the shelter in the dense residential area a real solution. It feels like you just put a bandage on a real problem and quick fix. The last one is I share a story in Cupertino. There's a homeless lady. Actually, she doesn't want to go to be sheltered. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Hi, I'm Jun Tang. I live in Birdland since 2015. I went to Central Library since then. I couldn't notice that the Central Library's hour is shorter and shorter. I'm against the project. I'm just as a taxpayer to question the funding. When I asked the librarian, they said, "Oh, we're short of staff. We're short of funding. So where's the funding?" Okay. Secondly, the nurse, the great nurse who. When I delivered, who helped me, I shockingly find that his home is actually in Tracy, which is very far around from here. He working El Camino Real Hospital. And also my neighbor, both of them are Santa Clara elementary teachers. They said, thank God my father bought a house a long time ago. Otherwise, 2 of us cannot afford a house right now. And also, I know a police officer and her wife live also. No, why there's no funding? Support them.
Hi, I'm Niranjan. I'm strongly opposed against this. I, like the rest of the community, do my fair bit to the needy. We package foods, teach their children, and build technology to provide them with opportunities. We already provide millions of dollars in terms of our federal state taxes through which the county has purchased this land. We are not going to open our doors to crime. You talked about life moves and the rules that the occupants are forced to, like no alcohol and no drugs. How are you going to enforce any of this? All of this and the system is totally flawed. You know that. When there is an issue, is the county, city, or life moves will be available to address any of this? No, it would be an unanswered line. You don't even take responsibility for this question. When the lady asked, how is life moves, how are you going to support it? You just direct it towards life moves. When you cannot take accountability, how can you push this accountability on the whole state of this residents? For you, it's a decision, but we as residents have to live with it, make better decisions.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Arun. So I moved from the city to Santa Clara in the hopes that this is going to be a safer place. I lived, yeah, it's the irony anyways. So in the city, there's open market drug deals. The homeless shelters has become like it's pretty scary. Even commercial businesses cannot run there because there's extreme looting around homeless shelters, right? So you're trying to do that here, it's going to be hell in the residents' place. So they're going to have open drug deals in Santa Clara, which I don't think should happen around schools, around around safe families. So I vehemently oppose this project. Thank you.
This is Jenny. I've been living in this neighborhood for 5 years. I strongly oppose this project. Is this the only land owned by the county? Can you tell us all the lands owned by the county? And can you compare all the lands and tell us why county choose this land over other lands? I really hate when Kevin said, as an engineer, you cannot simply say no. As an engineer, we all know we should evaluate multiple options. If there's only one option, my answer has to be either yes or no. If this is the only option you provided, then my answer is no.
My name's David Milius. I live in a home on Shaper. It literally abuts the property that's being sold. Yes, it's in my backyard, literally. It's going to be a 4-story building, and the images that you showed in the report last week, there was an image from the creek. That's the view from my backyard. The top layer is going to be able to see into all the properties along Shaper Drive, including my friends that have young children and swimming pools. That's a concern for me. I wouldn't care if it's the Ritz-Carlton going in. I want my privacy back. As for the comparing it to the other shelters, the other ones are all single story. They're in industrial areas. One's next to a police station. It kind of doesn't compare. Additionally, the financial thing, the New York City did a study just before the pandemic. If you're within 1,000 feet of a homeless shelter, you're going to lose about 6 to 7% of your home's value. If you're within 2 of them, which the folks on Flora Vista, between Bella Vista and this shelter, it's about 19%.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kirk Hinton. I also live on Schaefer Drive. I have 3 young daughters who are 12, 10, and 7, and my wife lives there with me also. We live 1,008 feet from the proposed shelter. I am in strong support of this shelter. I think, I wasn't going to speak tonight, but I wanted to answer a question that was asked earlier about would you take your young daughters to one of these shelters. I have, in fact, done so when my daughters were 7, 4, and 2. And I believe what those children learn at such a young age is empathy. Empathy is different from sympathy. Sympathy is saying, oh, I feel bad for that. Empathy is understanding what other people are going through. And I feel like I'm trying to be respectful to all my neighbors, and I understand that we have some real concerns, all of us. But compassion isn't just saying, oh, I hope it gets better. Compassion is going and doing something about it.
My name is Farouk. I've lived here for 34 years and own a home. I'm strongly opposed, as the majority of the audience here, against this project. I'm not sure if you're listening or not, but county has lots of property right up by 237, and the city owns a lot of it. Why not there? Why you want to put it in our backyard? I have 3 friends who were killed by the homeless they helped. They helped them for years, and suddenly they were mentally ill. They turned around and they killed them by knife, really tragically. 2 of them were women. So if you guys think that these people are nice and you can communicate with them, fine, they're good up to a point, and suddenly they could turn around and kill you. So this is what happened, and I can take you to their graveyards. So I'm totally opposed to this location for people who are not filtered. If you want to put families, only families, maybe, but if you want to put unfiltered people, no.
I'm gonna wait till they die down. Hi, my name is Ingrid Granados. I actually work with an agency called Destination Home. I'm an initiatives officer there, and I came here to speak in strong support of this proposed shelter. However, I'm going to take a slight turn and speak as somebody with lived experience, because I'm hearing a lot of misunderstanding and misconceptions about what this development is, and I think as somebody, I don't want to speak as a professional in this field, but as somebody who actually had interim housing, myself, my 20-month-old, and my partner at the time were unhoused. We have been born and raised in San Jose with our family members scattered out throughout this county, particularly 3 generations deep in Santa Clara, when it was fields, when it was a cannery. So what I want to say is that we actually were housed interimly or temporarily at the St. Francis Hotel. It was utterly despicable and disgusting to have children in that situation. And what this county has done in that time is really improved even those people like myself who needed the opportunity to be in a situation like I am now, with the livable wage, being a productive citizen, having 2 children. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Regina. I'm the resident of Santa Clara County. I strongly oppose this project. I think it's very unsafe for our community. I want to say no, no, no to this project. We're the taxpayer. I think we have the right to choose the right project, but this is not right for our community. I just want to say no again.
Okay, yeah, sure. Sorry. Hi, everyone. I'm Anjali, and I've lived here for 15 years. Someone brought up a good point. Housing is a human right. Isn't it right of your hardworking, tax-paying citizens? Why not make a low-cost housing for teachers, for police officers, firemen, those who enrich our community and contribute to it, okay? Isn't safety a human right? Especially for hardworking middle-class families. Why are you trying to turn Santa Clara into San Francisco? Just stop.
Hi, my name is Jue, and I've lived in the neighborhood for 5 years. I strongly oppose the location and zero-barrier nature of this shelter. I keep hearing from the stage how great this shelter will be, but I see zero effort in this proposal on how to minimize the impact to local residents and children. I see zero alternative options on finding a suitable industrial area instead of a dense residential area. I see zero honesty in manipulating the safety, school, and real estate data and telling just lies. Just because the problem exists doesn't mean any solution is the right solution. With such a proposal that shows zero consideration to local residents and children, our only answer is no.
Hello, my name is Julie. More than half of the people who came here a long way to show their support. Of course, they don't live here. They come from organizations, and they cannot represent residents here. As a resident who live within 1 block from here, I strongly against this project. I'm not a heartless person. I know a homeless who is very decent, who lives in his car. When I told him about this project, he told me he would not want to live in such a project, such a shelter. He did not want to live with criminal background homeless people around him. No decent person want to live in such a place. There are people who mention about their neighbors, about their relatives who are having a housing crisis, who are seeking for home here. But do you want your relatives, want your friends to live in such a shelter?
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Gautam, and I live within a quarter-mile of the proposed site, and I'm strongly opposed to this. The main reason is two reasons. This location combined with the no barrier, low barrier alternative. Look, a lot of us here are, honest, hardworking people. We pay a lot of taxes, and we just want to live in peace. But this action would bring an imminent threat to our doorstep, and we will not accept that. I know we just had an election in November, and we, the people, put you in office. We, the people, can also put you out of office through recall mechanisms. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Luisa, and I have lived in this neighborhood for 29 years, and I strongly oppose this project. First of all, I have a question, is why so many in Santa Clara? I just learned that there was a homeless shelter that is pretty recent that was built on Costco in Sunnyvale, along Lawrence Expressway, then the one in Pomeroy, and then this one, all along Lawrence Expressway. Why so many in our area? A lot of people here don't know about the one that is in Costco, by the way. Also, you're talking about also considering putting families with people who have with low barrier to entry shelters. That's so irresponsible to place family with people with criminal records, homeless families with that. I don't think they even want to do that. It looks good for you to say that, but I don't think they want to be there. Third thing I want to say something about the people who are in favor of this. Most of them don't have children. They are very young, and I see that they are being out of the... Well,
Hi, everyone. My name is Swapnil. I live right next to this project, 300 feet. We already have a lot of issues with people trespassing and vandalizing on our property. I strongly oppose this project. A temp shelter with a low barrier, male adults with criminal history, been to jail, physical and mental illness next to a busy intersection, a 7-Eleven and a liquor store, that's a recipe for disaster. Also, I see a lot of immigrant faces in this room. Can I get a show of hands for people who are first and second-gen immigrants here? A lot of hands, including myself. I came to America, just like a lot of people here, to call this my new home. After being to several cities in California, I decided to call Santa Clara my home, bought a house, adopted a dog, had a daughter. But now, with the fear about my family's safety, I cannot sleep at night. My wife and I are constantly having discussions about should we wait before we bring another life into this world. If in my own house, I cannot call it my home, what does that make me?
Hello, everyone. My name is Dylan, and first and foremost, I would like to thank the government workers and people who put on this event so that we can speak our opinion on this issue, and the people who worked with the developers including our representatives who made policy happen. I am in favor of this policy because I feel that doing something about homelessness is better than not doing anything about homelessness. People say that they don't want it in their backyard, and I agree. I don't want it in my backyard either. But I live near a development, and I recognize that there needs to be a solution to the problem. And having a program like this is better than having people on the streets. It's safer than having people on the streets. Homelessness won't go away just because you say no to a program like this. I encourage all of you to not think about how afraid you are of this program, but to think about how this program might benefit your community and my community too. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Richa, and I'm a mother of 2-year-old, and we live right across the site. I am strongly opposed to this project. I have a question, actually. What are the actions that you're going to take to help these sheltered people actually come out of their mental condition and come back to the state where they can actually get back on their feet and work for their living? What I see here is a temporary Band-Aid solution, but the Band-Aid of free resources is when it's taken off, People will flood in front of our doors, and it's extremely insecure for our kids. We don't want our kids to be exposed to drug, abusive language, molestation, weapons. We already have problems of stolen Amazon packages, car break-ins, smoking in our carports. How can we break these unpleasant habits and actually uplift people and help them develop good habits? We can be compassionate to the underprivileged people, but will these people be compassionate towards us?
And sir, sorry to interrupt you. We're taking 3 more speakers, so those of you that are behind the 3rd speaker, I apologize, but we do need to wrap up and let the police department answer the questions that you had for them.
Fellow Santa Clarans, my name is Michael. I've been a resident of Santa Clara for over 60 years, and I own a home in the Briarwood district. I'm appalled and totally against this project and the lack of insight by the City Council and the City of Santa Clara officials who claim they have our best interests in mind. How can you folks put in the very own neighborhoods and the corners of Benton and Lawrence and 2 other projects that you have proposed for the homeless, the drug-addicted criminals, the mentally ill individuals, for us to contend with? Why don't you park these people on the Lawrence Expressway and corner of Lawrence Expressway and El Camino Real by the Halford Avenue, that terrible, awful eyesore of a parking lot? And why don't you consider how we feel when the burglary and the auto theft rates of our homes come under attack from these hardened criminals, and let alone financially the strapped Santa Clara Police Department? So much for your proposal and so much for your equity. Why should we see our properties become devalued in a matter of months?
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Leon Dorfman. I'm president of Pomeroy Homeowner Association. This is 17 years old association next to Stratford. I'm representing working class of Santa Clara who is working long hours to feed the family, who pays taxes for the city prosperity, and who is voting for elect officials. And what I would like to say to police department specifically, and some people of this hall might have no information. I'm expecting the Santa Clara Police Department to have the records, but those records are hidden and hiding from the general public. The Pomeroy Avenue is unofficially named Drive-by Shooting Avenue. You know that?
Thank you. This is our last speaker. Everybody else, apologies, but we do need to wrap up.
Hello, my name is Kate. I'm a local resident. I'm a strong opposed to this project. And my question is to all the decision makers, have you already made up your mind? If not, how do you take our voices? I have been to these 3 meetings, majority, I say no, right? I'm not sure how many emails you have received and what's the percentage of support or against, and how many comment cards you have received. What's the percentage of support or against? And how do we do to let you know that our voices can be heard? What more can we do? Put this into the tax bullets, let the local votes, not the housing organization or other people not from this community. How about, I don't know, parade, strikes, signatures? What do we need to do to let you know the majority of our voices? Thank you.
Thank you. I know there was a lot of questions tonight about safety and security, so I wrote a bunch of them down. I'm going to do my best to address each one of them. Let me first start out by saying that I have a heart for this city. I've been working in the streets of Santa Clara as a police officer for 28 years. Beat 1, which is the area of Benton and Lawrence, encompasses our geographical area, which is called Beat 1. That was my first beat as I got off training many years ago, so that specific area has a special place in my heart as well. Whether this facility occurs or not, you have to know that the men and women of the Santa Clara Police Department, both uniform and ununiform, stand to protect you. That's what our chosen profession is. When the pastor opened up here this evening, he said that it is his place to serve the community, and we feel that that's our job as well. So whether that community is in a car or a tent or $1 million home, it's our calling to serve this community of the city of Santa Clara. I got provided a list of questions for safety and security. So I'm going to answer some of these, and I also wrote down some specific questions that you guys had that weren't on here. So some of the questions, a lot of it had to do with the statistics, the crime statistics in the city and or crime statistics surrounding other venues like this proposal. I want to give you guys a resource. It's called the communitycaremap.com. I can write it down or we can put it in the packet for you guys, but it's called communitycrimemap.com. This is a company called LexisNexis that pulls all of our all of our calls for service every night at midnight and posts it online. You can go onto this website, put your address or whatever address you have in question in our city, and it'll give you all of the crimes that took place in that area over whatever crime rate or whatever crime span or time span that you put in the filter. One caveat on this database is it pulls the data as it was reported to the police department and not the culmination of the investigation of the officers that went out there. So if it got reported as a robbery, but it ended up turning out to be a theft, there will be that delineation. However, it is a good resource for you to see what's happening in and around your neighborhood. There were some questions about homelessness wandering out in the streets and getting hit by a car. I asked Sergeant Deeger, who's also here with me, if he can remember any homeless person who was hit in the car anytime in the recent past. We couldn't think of any. Not to say that there's not vehicle pedestrian accidents in our city, because they do happen way too often, but we can't think of any that took place with a homeless individual. There was a question here about what happens if there's drug use and needles found in the street. Obviously, we would handle that just like there's any other call for service in our city. We would dispatch a police officer out there to take a crime report. And if we could match that up with the person, we would send that information over to the DA's office for potential criminal charges. There were some questions on staffing. So does the Santa Clara Police Department and Fire Department get additional staffing due to this project? Another one here, Santa Clara Police already stressed, does the police department and chief have confidence to support such a large homeless facility, and others about staffing and our resources? We are strained. We're strained just like all other businesses are as far as staffing. But I can tell you one area that we are not strained in, and that's our patrol, our uniform patrol that's out on the streets protecting you, your family, and your property. That's always remained high because that's our first area of responsibility is when you call 911 that we have officers to send. So although other areas of our police department are less staffed than they have been historically, our uniform patrol is not. We're very robustly staffed. We put resources also to areas of crime that happen in the cities. So we have seen the homeless population explode exponentially over the past few years. One area that they congregate is in our parks. We put specific park patrols in place using funding that is open because it's unstaffed positions where we don't have a police officer. So we'll use that funding to fund overtime to put police officers in the parks. That's been very, very successful. We've been in Homeridge Park, Central Park, and other parks in the city, specifically addressing homelessness and the homelessness issue and the impacts that they bring to the community that's visiting those parks. We also developed not long ago a community response team. Sergeant Greg Deeger heads up that unit, which is why he's here tonight. They have interactions with homeless individuals throughout our city on a daily basis, multiple times. They're at encampments, they're speaking with resources, then they're trying to put these individuals in touch with those resources. It's him and 4 other officers and a non-uniform staff as well to work on statistics for them. So those resources are out there, And again, they're specifically targeted towards lessening the impact to our community of things that are popping up criminal-wise. There was a lot of questions in here about individual, how the facility will handle criminal activity that happens within the walls of that facility. I can't speak to how they're going to handle that. I think we'll know more on April 25th with our council meeting. But I can tell you that if they call with an individual with a gun or with drugs, we will go handle that just like we would at any other facility in the city. There's some questions about that out, and there's also some information when you guys go look at crime stats. A gentleman came up to me earlier this evening before we started and asked why the crime report or crime stats skyrocketed lately. We recently changed from the way that we report our crime statistics. There's some additional information on our PD website that can get more into detail, but just a brief overview. There's 2 different ways that law enforcement reports the crime to the federal government, and we switched. We used to put 1 crime per incident. That's historically how law enforcement agencies did that. So for instance, if somebody's in a stolen car and goes and does a theft at a local market and then gets in a pursuit with an officer, we used to take the highest crime and report that stat as for that incident. Now we list out every single crime that was occurred and we report all of them. So obviously there's going to be a massive spike in criminal activity, and that's kind of what you're seeing at some of these locations when you're searching for them. So I just want to give that caveat. And again, there's additional information on our website if you want more. There's been a lot of talk about the Milpitas site and how the calls for service for public safety, both police and fire, went up exponentially. And I'm not saying that it didn't. I've had conversations with the police chief there, and it's very concerning for them. And that's one of our concerns as well. But what we've found through all of this is there's also entities that do it very, very well. We have, now obviously there's difference between every single entity out there, but we used to have the Western Motel. I'm sure many of you who have been in the city for a long time are familiar with that. As a young officer out on the street, that was one of the areas where I hung out all the time because there was criminal activity out of there nonstop. That recently changed over into the Covenant House, which is a supportive housing for young adults, 18 to 25. There was a lot of angst on that because we thought that our calls for service were going to go up. I can tell you that we've had virtually no calls out there, no calls from the surrounding community, no calls where we've responded to. And so we look at what is done right and what is done wrong. So going back to the Milpitas, there's not a perimeter around there that's secure, so people come and go. There's not a lot of relationships between the facility and the people that put people into that facility with the local law enforcement agency. And then also the size of it. We've seen that the larger that they are, the little bit harder they are to control. So what we like to see is one way in, one way out. We like to see robust security. We like to see positive relationships with the people that are running the facility. I know I mentioned Greg. We have facilities already in our city. Greg and his unit are in daily conversations with a lot of these facilities throughout our city right now. And that's mitigating any incidents that come up, talking with people that are causing problems, getting them removed, and so on. We don't have a lot of the details on this, exactly what it's going to look like. And so, again, we're looking for additional information on the April 25th council meeting where we're hoping to see exactly what this is going to look like or proposed. And in closing, if there's other questions that I didn't get to or I missed them, I'll leave my card up here. I'll be down here to your right, my left, after this is over. If you have any specific questions that you didn't feel comfortable coming up and asking, I'll be here. And then I'll also leave some of my cards on the table. Feel free to contact me anytime you would like if you have additional questions. And also, please go to our PD website. It also has additional resources on there on what our response is to homelessness in our community.
Thank you. We're going to allow the public officials here a moment to say a few words, and then we will conclude the meeting. Can we put up the slide about staying engaged in the next step? I believe it's the second to last slide. Just a reminder, we are having meeting number 4. We'll leave the details up there so that you can capture them. They are also posted on our website.
Thank you, Consuelo, and thank you to Assistant Police Chief Derek Rush. That was fabulous. I think we're all reassured. I am. So, you know, there's a lot of concerns. By the way, I'm Suds Jane, council member for District 5. There's a lot of concerns about the safety of the people that are living here. And, you know, right now there's people living in the creek. The 7-Eleven is a huge draw for people. I talked to a number of residents. Everyone seems to complain about current break-ins in their houses already that are happening from people living in a zero barrier shelter in the creek. There was a open lot at the corner of San Tomas and Monroe, and that was where we had the pumpkin patch and the Christmas tree sales. That is now a beautiful community garden with a park there. So, and that pumpkin patch and Christmas tree sales went somewhere else. It was not a loss to the community. I want to address, I'm an engineer, so I talk about data. People asked about data. With the Milpitas facility, the number of calls to that facility did go up, but they were comparing, the council was only comparing calls to that facility when it was a hotel versus when it was a shelter. And it wasn't a shelter, it was interim housing. And there's a huge difference between shelters and interim housing. Shelters, as Consuelo had said, people come at night, they line up, they sleep, they're turned out, they end up in the community, they're just turned out and they're loitering in the community. This is not that. They have a place where they can stay all day if they want. And they will get a good night's sleep. They'll get fed 3 meals a day, so they won't be diving in dumpsters and everything else. They'll get counseling. They'll get job counseling, mental health counseling, addiction counseling. And then the New York Times article talked about housing prices. That was for a shelter. That's what I was talking about, where people come at night, they sleep, and then they're just in the neighborhood doing whatever they want, looking for food, breaking into things. That's not what we have here. And then people that don't have any counseling, they do bad things. We had an incident where the Eddie Souza Park that I talked about, which has a community garden, an unhoused person lit that place on fire. Now it's going to cost the city somewhere about $500,000 to repair that building. So having people that are unsupervised is not a good thing. Thank you.
If there are no other, oh, please go ahead.
So again, my name is Kevin Park, and I am the Vice Mayor of Santa Clara, and this is my district. Welcome for everyone who comes from outside the district, but I do feel that it is my responsibility to address the people in my district. I'm not going to sit there and tell you I didn't listen. If you see me typing, you see me looking at things, I take a lot of notes. And for anyone who doesn't believe that's true, you can challenge me on that. I welcome that. I've listened to everything that I've heard. I've written down notes for all the things that I think were notable, both good and bad. I hear a lot of people saying, well, you made up your minds already. I'll guarantee, I have a daughter waiting at home. She's 6 years old. She goes to a school in this area. If my mind were made up, I wouldn't waste my time coming here. I guarantee you that that's the case. I would rather be a lot of other places if I already had my mind made up. I'm going to say again, because I hear a lot of misconceptions. I think that people are saying, you're not listening to us. I don't think people are hearing some of the changes that are being made. And you're saying, well, the changes aren't big enough. Well, I'll tell you, That's what these meetings are supposed to be for. These meetings are supposed to be for you to give input on how you want this to be changed, right? And I'll tell you, I'll be quite honest with you. For everyone that says, well, you're an engineer and no is a good answer, yes and no, I'm saying, oh my goodness. But I will say, no is not a it's not a good option. If you want things to change, then you've got to tell us what options you want. Right? It's my job to vote on what's brought in front of us. That's my job. And if you say, and I'm going to say, if you say, well, we want you to come up with all these different things.
That's the problem we have.
Okay.
And they're right. The problem is,
Oh, well, I want to hear what you have to say, because I want to hear what you have to say.
there are a lot of people here saying that yes, they're afraid. And yes, my brother was homeless, my sister's homeless. But I think you're not listening to the fact that we want to help. A lot of people
Wait.
who are for this, they say, I heard from the background behind me saying, oh, you yelled at me or you because you disagree with me. But I think the problem is we do want to help.
Okay, so now I've heard your place, and I'm going to say a couple things. Does anyone know what I'm thinking?
Yes.
You know what I'm thinking. I'll tell you, I don't even know what I'm thinking because I don't even know what the project is. Right.
We are all engineers.
Okay, and I'm going to say,
We all engineers.
No, we're not. Okay, so.
For what?
Now, I have this story that I always tell, which is, when you think you're good, you tell people. But when you're great, other people tell you. So, to be honest, don't really consider myself an engineer. I don't care what the engineers are. I do consider myself a parent. I do consider myself someone who lives in this neighborhood. I think that if we're going to rally behind flags and labels, then the flags and labels that we should rally behind are as a community. And if we can't do that, and if you're going to come here and assume that people have made their minds up, that things aren't going to change, that any input that you give, that just saying no, not doing the due diligence, not doing the work to tell people what you want, and for people to guess what you're saying, for you to assume that I'm taking all these notes because I've already formed my opinion and my fingers are I'm just bored. I will say that is not true. I'll also invite anyone who believes this and wants to have a good project or wants to have no project or wants to have anything but is open to conversation to come and talk with me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. That concludes our meeting. We do, again, need to... Thank you, everybody, for joining us.